Good afternoon, brothers and sisters, and welcome to another daily devotional with Stephen, the Saved Schizophrenic. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm uploading this video a little bit earlier than usual for a couple reasons. One, it's a two-parter, so it's a longer video than usual. It's probably going to be about 30 to 45 minutes. And secondly, I have some plans this evening, and so I don't think I would be able to record this video in the evening, so that's why I'm uploading it earlier. So thank you for understanding. Because I said it's a two-parter, I wanted to first talk about and discuss something that I don't think is talked about enough, especially by social media influencers, from brothers and sisters on this app for TikTok. This topic is one that often is skipped over. And I don't know why it's skipped over. Maybe because people don't think it's a big deal. People don't think it's a big issue, but it is one that affects a lot of people, because attending church sounds easy. It's something that a lot of brothers and sisters will mention in their videos of attend church, go on Sundays, receive the sacrament, listen to your pastor or preacher talk, give their sermon. You meet people, you meet brothers and sisters, and it's a community and so forth. And they talk about all these good things about going to church, but brothers and sisters on this app never talk about the truth, the reality of attending church, which is it's difficult. And it's difficult for a lot of people. I'm going to be talking about my own experience from my background and why it's difficult for me to attend church. And so I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. And I am also speaking on behalf of some people who I have talked to, and they've shared the same experience as I'm going to share with you. So again, not talking for everyone, but I am talking for people who share the same experience as I do, that I experience. So hopefully that's you're able to understand that difference. Now, attending church, it is something that for me, I have a hard time doing. I'm someone who has a traumatic past. I was sexually abused by my father, and church growing up it didn't play an enormous role or influence on my life, but between the ages of when I was a baby to about 10 years old, I remember going to church a few times, and it was a Baptist church, I believe so. And I just remember our family not being very social or not being very connected to the church, that my mother was looked at as someone who is sick because my mother had schizophrenia just like I do. And so people treated her in a way that just was very unkind. They treated her like an outsider, and my dad, he had his own issues with alcohol and drugs, and he also was kind of treated as that black sheep, as someone who doesn't belong, as someone who is, not just an ordinary sinner, but someone who is an outcast of, they're just an addict, they don't belong here, why are they here, they should, go somewhere else. And so my family wasn't looked at as a family that belongs in church. And so at a young age, I remember just being abandoned by the church overall. And so growing up, I had a traumatic past, a traumatic childhood with my dad abusing me. And when my mother and father both passed away, my mother passed away when I was about 5.5 years old, roughly. Complication of health issues and drugs. And then my dad passed away when I was about 9.5, around that age, from complications of, again, health and drugs. And so I was in foster care. And when I was in foster care, Church wasn't anywhere in the vicinity, meaning it wasn't important. I remember bouncing from a couple homes, home to a home to a home. The first home I was in was my uncle, my biological uncle, who I stayed with him for several months along with my sister. And he wasn't very much into the church. I don't remember ever going to church with him. I do remember once going to Mall of America and him leaving me there and just me being lost and confused about where he is and why he isn't there to take me home. And I'm pretty sure he did it on purpose. And at one point, a security guard found me just walking around the mall, and they took me to their office and found, I think I had my uncle's phone number in my pocket. And so that's how they found his number and called him to pick me up. And after a couple months, my uncle gave me and my sister up. He couldn't take care of us. We were too much. We were misbehaving and just, he didn't want to take care of us. So we went into the foster care system. And one of the families we stayed with was a indigenous family, Native American family. And I remember going to the casino a couple times, and they attended different tribal conferences and tribal events. And so again, the church wasn't a big influence during that time. And then the moment that the church became an influence again in my life was when I was adopted. I was adopted by a couple. My adopted mother, named Darcy, she was Catholic by faith, and her family was a majority Catholic family. And my adopted dad, named Gene, he was Jewish by faith, by tribe, I don't know what you want to call it, but by family-wise, they were Jewish, from Kiev, Ukraine. And so I was adopted. My sister chose not to be adopted. She was old enough that she could say no. And there I was alone, adopted by myself into this family. And that's when the church became relevant again in my life, to where I started going to Catholic church again. My adopted mom made me go through kind of like a Sunday school, to where I was given a confirmation name. I was named after Saint Stephen, who I believe is the patron saint of athletes, I think. And so I went through kind of Sunday school. We were attending church trying to attend church every weekend, every Sunday. The church, I believe, was called Saint Stanislaus, or in short, Saint Stans. And I remember the pastor being kind of old in age. So we attended for several years. That's when the church became relevant again in my life, because not only did I attend a Catholic church growing up, I attended Catholic schools. So I attended St. Columbus or St. Columba. I attended the St. Mark's for grade school. And then I attended a Catholic high school, Cretan Durham Hall. And so I attended Catholic schools growing up. So faith became rather important to me. And at the same time as I started being more involved in church, I also started drifting away at the same time, if that makes sense, to where on one hand, I was trying to show my parents that, oh, it's okay, I kind of like church, or not that I like church per se, but that it was something I was comfortable with, that I didn't mind going to church, or that it was something that I was okay with. I remember at one point in grade school going to a going to a faith worship event. It was like almost like a convention event to where it was called Fire, Fire, and there was a whole bunch of music bands and these big pep talks by these different pastors and preachers. And I remember going to a couple events like that, which were just big worship events. The person who was involved was named Mr. Freeze, who worked with one of the schools that I went to, St. Columba. He's the one that actually got me excited about the church a little bit. And so as I went into high school, I was like, this is pretty cool. I'm kind of into church. I don't mind going to mass or going to Sunday services. I don't mind going to a Catholic high school. And that is when things slowly started to disintegrate, slowly started to crumble, per se, to where I started to slowly step away from church. One, because that's when my mental health started really declining, to where my schizophrenia started showing itself in high school about junior, senior year, to where I started to self-harm. I started cutting myself pretty regularly. I started drinking, smoking, doing drugs as often as I could get away with. And I was sexually active at that time. And so I slowly started to slip away from Catholicism, I guess you could say, because it was a Catholic high school. And I was a member of the LGBTQ pride group. In high school, my sexuality was something that I did focus on a little bit, to where I didn't think I was straight in high school. I didn't think I was gay in high school, per se. But when I was a teenager, I was interested in both boys and girls. And so I had a couple different people I was interested in, different people I had relations with. I messed around with both boys and girls. A couple of the volleyball players on the girls' side, a couple of the football players on the guys' side. And so I messed around quite a lot in high school. Along with, I was in theater, so I messed around with some theater kids. And I just was all over the place mentally in high school, to where it got to the point that I was hospitalized probably about 3 or 4 times. That due to the self-harm, me really being a hoe, I was a whore. I really was. I was sleeping around, messing around. I attended parties off campus or off with friends that weren't school friends. These were friends that my adopted parents didn't like. My adopted parents didn't want me to hang out with this group of people. And this group of people were friends that I met at a rec center, and friends that were a bad influence. They went to parties, they drank, they did drugs, they messed around, and they just were a bad influence on me. I attended parties with them and would often shut off my phone so I couldn't receive texts or calls from my adopted parents, and I would drink during the whole night, do drugs, sleep around, and I would wake up the next morning, turn on my phone, and boom, received 15, 20 texts, 20 calls from my parents. Where are you? What are you doing? We're worried about you. We're calling the police, and so forth. There were several times where my adopted parents did call the police, and they said that I was missing, that I was at parties, getting drunk, doing drugs, and they were worried about me. There were several times I ran away from home because I was unwell. Mentally, I was going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and I ran away. And I ran away because my relationship with my adopted parents started to crumble, per se. It started to just it started to tear apart from the seams. And a lot of it was my fault. I was drinking, doing drugs, partying, having sex, and I didn't care what they were telling me. I ignored their advice. I really just wanted to lose myself. And a lot of the reason why I wanted to lose myself was because I started having memories of my biological father and him sexually abusing me. I started having flashbacks and memories, and I could feel my biological father's hands all over my body, and I was suffering from PTSD. And it was a time in my life to where I just didn't want to think. I didn't want to remember. I hated my memories. I hated living, and I wanted to do anything I could to escape. And so a lot of me escaping had to do with alcohol, drugs, sleeping around, and doing everything I can to be disobedient, to be rebellious. And it didn't help that my schizophrenia started to appear junior, senior year, to where I stopped going to mass. Every time at my high school that we had mass during the week, I missed it. I hid under the bleachers. I would go to the theater and hide in one of the rooms that mostly nobody checked, nobody went to, nobody really knew about. It was actually in the theater wardrobe room, to where there was the costumes and accessories, and where the play just costumes and wardrobe was, and it was usually locked, but I was able to either jimmy the lock, or I was able to get the key and use the key, because I was a theater kid, so oftentimes the theater director person would give me the key, and I was pretty cool with them, to where they understood I didn't fit in, and so they would allow me to just hang out in the theater. But that's one of the places I hid when we had service during the week. And as my schizophrenia started to appear, not only did I have PTSD and trauma due to abuse by my father, I started having that alcohol, drugs started impacting me, self-harm, cutting myself, suicidal thoughts. I was hospitalized several times. And then you add schizophrenia onto it, my life was falling apart. And going to church was out of the question. I didn't belong. I didn't want to be there. I didn't feel like people respected me. I definitely didn't feel loved by anyone. And the voices and what I was hearing and seeing made it impossible for me to sit through an hour of service. You can imagine, or maybe you can't imagine, but sitting in a service, hearing voices 24/7, seeing things like zombies and werewolves and vampires, and horror movie characters like It, or Pennywise the Clown, or Chucky from the Chucky series, or Freddy Krueger, or Michael Myers, Jason, the Hellraiser demons from the Hellraiser series, Ghostface, the Leprechaun from the Leprechaun series. And I was seeing these horror movie characters, and they would kill people. There would be blood and guts everywhere, and It was a very violent things I was seeing. And so you can imagine it's almost impossible to sit through something calm and collected while people are being killed around you. And that's what would happen to me during high school when I would sit through mass. And so I stopped going. And that was high school for me, to where I was out of control, I was wild, and I was not safe in high school. I mean, and that's why I was hospitalized 3-4 times, because I wanted to unalive myself. I didn't want to be alive. And that behavior continued in college, where I attended St. Cloud State University in St. Cloud, Minnesota, to where I was drinking, I was doing drugs, smoking, not only cigarettes, but I was doing hardcore drugs like cocaine. I tried meth a couple times, and other drugs, and I just was out of my mind. I had friends. During college, I was a practicing Muslim. I studied Islam, and that was my religion during college. And I was not good. I was not a good Muslim, because I was drinking, I was doing drugs, I was eating pork, I was skipping prayers, fasting during Ramadan. I cheated, and I often ate food and was drinking, was drunk most of the time. And I had friends, but my friends didn't know how to cope or how to help me, because I was schizophrenic. I was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I was out of my mind. I was wild, wicked, unrighteous, unholy, a degenerate sinner. I was an evil human being, and they didn't know how to help me. And during college, I very rarely attended church. There was a couple times where I went to a couple different church functions. They were mostly related to food and free dinner, free food. But that was about it. I went to the mosque usually during that time, but I didn't feel accepted. Majority of the people around me during that time in college, there was a lot of Somalis, a lot of East Africans, and again, I didn't feel like I belonged. I didn't feel accepted. I was supposed to learn Arabic, but I didn't really learn it because I was too busy drinking, getting drunk, doing drugs, sleeping around. And in college, I was sleeping around again with men and women. And it was a time to where I didn't care. I didn't care about faith or religion because I was running away from my problems. My problems scared me, and I was scared for my life. And so, I couldn't earn money. I couldn't have a job because I had schizophrenia, and my symptoms were crazy. And so I sold myself. I would trade my body and have sex with men and women in exchange for them to buy me drugs. And that's what I would do majority of the time. And it was wild because I didn't care what they did, whether they used handcuffs or sex toys or if it was an orgy. I remember times to where, there was me and there was, 3-4 people also in the room, and whether it was guys or girls, I didn't care, and they took their turns with me, and in exchange they bought me drugs, and that's all I cared about was the drugs. And so there was times where I had bruises on my body that I hid with long sleeve t-shirts, with jeans and jackets and coats and bandanas and hoodies, and I would hide the bruises that I had, the black and blue bruises that I got from the people who would hit me and abuse me during those moments to where I exchanged my body for drugs. And during that time, I didn't attend church because I felt like I wouldn't be welcome, that I was too unrighteous, I was too wicked, I was too evil. And that's why I was scared to attend church during college, because not only was I a terrible Muslim, but I was a terrible person. I was a schizophrenic addict, druggie, prostitute, escort, hooker, whatever you want to call me. I did not deserve to go to church or be loved. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't go. And that behavior continued until my early 30s. And I regret a lot of it, and I feel a lot of shame because of it, that I lost a big portion of my life. About 15 years of my life that I lost, that I don't remember really. My memory, due to the drugs and the substance abuse and my schizophrenia, my memory is not great. It's pretty bad. It's terrible. So I don't remember a lot of my time in college or grad school. It's hazy for me. I really just remember the bad times, the times where I was hospitalized in psychiatric units, the times to where I was abused, sexually assaulted by, men who used my body because I just wanted to get high. And I wish I would have went to church because I could have got help, but I didn't want that help during that time because I felt like I didn't deserve it. And I would say things changed. Things started to change for me a couple years ago, to where while I was living in Alaska, I started to attend church a little bit more. And I started to attend the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as Mormons. I attended church in Alaska during that faith, or that kind of Christian church, or whatever you want to call it. And when I attended the Mormon church, that was one of the first times I felt accepted. I felt loved. I felt like they didn't judge me for my past. And while I was living in Alaska, it was off and on. I didn't go every Sunday, but it was probably every other Sunday, to where I did meet with missionaries, and I met and had lunch with different members of the church, and we read the Bible and read the Book of Mormon and so forth. So that a couple years ago, when I was living in Alaska, is when I started developing my faith again. And I wasn't going to church every Sunday because of my illness, to where it just was hard to sit through church because of the reasons I already told you about. The hallucinations were very active, and so I was distracted. I was paranoid that people were reading my thoughts. And so sitting in a pew and people smiling at me, I started being paranoid that they're lying, they're faking it, they don't mean to smile at me, they want to kill me. And it was just, I was going through psychosis. I was having psychotic episodes at church. And so I was a danger to myself. I was a danger to other people. And so I didn't want that to happen, which is why I didn't go to church on a regular basis. And the Mormon church while I was in Alaska, was one of the few times to where I started being interested in faith again, in Jesus Christ. And I don't know why it was the Mormon church that got me interested in it again. It could just be coincidence, but that's who really got me out of that dark place mentally, to where I wanted to get to know Christ again. And I lived in Alaska for 3 years, 2-3 years. There was a couple different, I had friends there. I was in a relationship there, and my schizophrenia again started popping off. It became too much. I wasn't getting the help I needed in terms of medical, in terms of just medical help, facilities, hospitals, doctors, medicine, medication, therapy. I just wasn't getting the help I needed. So I moved from Alaska to Minnesota, and I moved to Minnesota about a year ago. I think it is now about a year ago. And I would say that when I first moved here, I was very psychotic. I was going through experiencing psychosis, and it was not good. It was to the point that I tried to end my life during last Christmas of 2024. And I've talked about this in other videos, to where I had a plan, the who, what, when, where, why, and I acted upon it, and it ended up with me crying, naked, kneeling on the floor in my shower with a knife in my hand, and Jesus Christ rescued me from that darkness. And I'm thankful every day that he rescued me. And so, I wouldn't say that, well, I'll say it this way, that now I do attend church more often. I try to attend church every Sunday. And I wouldn't say that I'm Mormon. I wouldn't say that I'm a member of the LDS church per se, even though that's one of the few churches I've attended over the years. I would describe myself as non-denominational, or if I had to pick a denomination, I guess Calvinism, because I do believe in predestination. But yeah, it's either non-denominational or Calvinism, I guess. And I mean, Catholicism, not really. I wouldn't consider myself Catholic, but probably non-denominational, because that's the one that makes sense to me, that there's little bits of each denomination that I like. I like, in terms of Catholicism, the role of Mary and the saints, and the role of the saints in Catholicism. And then Calvinism, I like predestination and their philosophy on that. So I like little bits of each kind of denomination a little bit, but that's why I consider myself as non-denominational. But that is, I guess, the 33 minutes of me and my background. Now I'm going to read to you what I wrote when it came to why people find it hard to go to church. This is called A Home I Ache For, parentheses, Church. Here we go. The doors are wide, the music swells, yet my feet feel heavy, as though the pavement outside the church has been poured over me. Anchoring me to my doubts, I want to go in, to be with the faithful, to raise my hands like theirs, to let the hymns carry me higher than my thoughts. But the voices whisper in my ear, they will see you, they will judge you. You are broken, you do not belong. The bells that call the faithful inside feel like alarms in my head, reminding me of every failure, every hallucination. And that's what I feel like going to church. Every time I have been silenced by the illness that clings to me. That's what I feel like going to church, that I'm too broken. That compared to everyone else that I meet at church, I feel like I'm the worst person ever. I feel like I'm so evil. I'm such a degenerate, that I'm so unrighteous, that I'm so wicked. And like sometimes I imagine, like when I step through the doors of the church, I'll catch on fire and burn. And it's just, I don't feel like I deserve to go to church because of everything I've done wrong. And that's one of the reasons why I do appreciate going to an LDS church or a Mormon church, because whenever I go, they shake my hand, they give me a hug, and they welcome me. I've been to other churches to where they kind of shun me. They treat me as a black sheep. They treat me as an outcast. And the moment that they find out I'm an addict, that I'm schizophrenic, that I've been through it, I've been through the struggle, they kind of distance themselves from me. And it's only in really the LDS church that I've shared my struggles and I've been embraced, per se, that I've been accepted. And that's what I found, at least my experience has been with the LDS church. I'm not saying everyone shares that experience, because I've heard stories and people from other struggles and backgrounds that say that they felt the opposite, but this is my experience with the LDS church, that they welcomed me. And this is someone who has struggled really with addiction, with self-harm, with cutting, with suicidal thoughts, with sexuality and sleeping with both men and women, and just schizophrenia and being hospitalized. So one of the reasons why it's hard for me to go to church is because just of that feeling of brokenness. So let's go on. Inside, the pews are lined with smiles, but I see suspicion behind them. My mind paints shadows on faces that may mean no harm. I sit down, but the seat feels like a spotlight. The sermon begins, and I want to listen, but the preacher's voice is joined by three others no one else can hear. They argue, they mock, they twist scripture into daggers. I cannot tell which words are truth and which are false. Blooming like weeds in my ears, the others bow their heads in prayer. I close my eyes, but the darkness behind my eyelids is crowded, and I feel less alone in the worst way. And it's true. My symptoms are one of the reasons why it's hard for me to attend church all the way through. I usually leave about, I would say, 45 minutes in, before the sermon is done, before the pastor's done preaching. I usually leave because my hallucinations are acting up, I'm seeing things, and the paranoia is really bad, and it gets to the point that my symptoms are so severe that I'm a danger to myself and a danger to other people. And I don't want to get to the point where I'm physically violent with anyone. I don't want to get to the point to where I start harming myself, and so I leave. And that's one of the things people don't understand, especially about schizophrenia, is if we're paranoid enough, if we're delusional enough, if we let the hallucinations win and they overpower us, we can become violent, we can become physical, and we don't want to put people in that position. And so we would rather leave the situation, leave the environment, leave that space, and go somewhere where we're by ourselves. And that's really why it's hard for me to go to church, or at least to stay in church for the whole service. Worship is supposed to lift me, but my paranoia chains me down. I wonder if the woman behind me knows the sins I've hidden. I wonder if the man beside me can read my thoughts. The way I feel them spilling, the songs echo in my chest. Yet sometimes the organ's notes melt into sirens, and the choir's harmony splits into sharp edges. I want to sing, but my throat locks, afraid my voice will betray the madness. I wrestle in silence. And that's what happens to where, sorry guys, I was getting distracted. And that's what happens to where the worship is supposed to lift me, but my illness is keeping me down, to where the hymns don't sound like hymns. They're daggers that just are cutting and stabbing me. where the hymns, I don't hear the song, I hear my voices talking down at me, tearing me apart, ripping me into pieces, to where they're violent, they're vulgar, they're harassing me, they talk nonstop crap about me, about other people, and they cause me to be very paranoid. And so the hymns aren't hymns, they're not lifting me up. And imagine that is not a pleasant feeling. So who would want to go to church when they feel that way? When they're experiencing that kind of horror. So I long for communion, the bread, the cup, the taste of mercy, the reminder of grace. But as I walk forward, the aisle stretches endlessly, my steps exposed to every eye. The voices rise again. You are unworthy. This table is not for you. God has turned his face away. I know these are lies, but knowing does not silence them. The pastor offers me the bread, and for a moment I feel whole. But even as I take it, another thought tears through. Poison, it is poison. Do not eat. And I choke down the gift of life as if swallowing doubt. I mean, and that's one of the reasons also is communion. It's not easy for me, to where the bread, the water, the wine, whatever you want to put in that situation, it's like poison, to where my voices are telling me don't drink it, don't eat it. It's going to kill you. And who wants to try to battle that? Sometimes I'm so weak. Sometimes I'm too tired of fighting that I'm like, okay, you're right, it is poison. It's gonna kill me. So I skip communion. And I hate skipping communion because for me, it's a vow. I'm agreeing, I'm promising Heavenly Father that I'm going to try my best to live according to the gospel. And when I don't take communion, it's like I'm rejecting God. And I don't want to feel that. And it's just, communion is one of the toughest things for me because of my illness, and the voices and the paranoia just make it impossible for me to be like, yeah, this is normal. I'm here. I'm going to take the bread. I'm going to take the wine, the water, and I'm going to promise God that I'm going to live according to the gospel. Yep, okay. It's hard for me to do that communion stuff. After service, fellowship flows like water, coffee poured, laughter shared, children running in circles of light. I stand in the corner, a shadow among their warmth. How do I explain that my silence is not pride, but protection, that my shaking hands are not nerves, but a battle with invisible storms? Some hug me, their kindness real, yet I shrink back, because touch sometimes feels like fire and sometimes like accusation. I want to belong, but my illness whispers that belonging is a trick, that the church is not safe. And that's something I struggle with, that the church is not safe, to where, who do I believe? My illness and the voices and the hallucinations, or the church, to where when I go to church, there's people who care about me, who love me, who try to embrace me, who try to help me and support me? Or do I believe my hallucinations that are telling me don't trust people, don't eat or drink anything because it's going to kill you. You only can trust us because we love you and we've been with you from the start. And it's true, my hallucinations have been with me since high school. Skylar and Cheyenne, which are my two big hallucinations that follow me around everywhere and talk to me, they've been with me since high school. And so that's 15 plus years they've been with me. That's almost half of my life. And so do I trust them, or do I trust the people at church that tell me that they're here for me? And it's a battle for me to figure out which one has more say, which one has leverage, which one do I trust? And it's a battle. And that battle is one of the reasons why it's difficult for me to sit through church, sit through service, and for me to attend Sunday school and Bible study and everything. And yet, in spite of the fear, in spite of the voices, in spite of the doubts that sit like weights on my chest, I still come back because somewhere beneath the noise of my mind, I know God's voice is steadier. Somewhere between the paranoia and the peace, I know his hand is reaching. The church is not always easy for me. The pews can feel like prison bars, the sermons like storms, the hymns like haunted echoes, but grace has a way of breaking through. A stranger's smile, a verse that cuts through the fog, a prayer that settles the war in me. For just a moment, it is difficult, but I come, because even in my fractured mind, I believe. Christ's love does not tremble at my illness. His church, though hard to face, is still a home I ache for, a place where someday I pray my heart will find rest. And I do. I pray that someday my heart will find rest. I pray that someday I'm able to feel welcomed and embraced and loved at church. It's something I still haven't felt yet. And I'm not sure if it's something that I'm doing wrong. I'm not sure if it's something that church is doing wrong. I'm not even sure if it's just because I'm schizophrenic and I'm never going to feel that way about church. It's something that I struggle with sincerely. But that's what I wanted to share with you about why some people don't come to church, about my experience, my life, and I hope and I pray that my honesty and transparency was something that people can learn from, that people can really take some notes about what someone goes through and how what they go through affects them being able to go to church. So thank you guys so much, and we're gonna start the devotional side of things now after 46 minutes. So brothers and sisters, this is the start of the devotional. So we are starting at Matthew chapter 26, verse 30 to 46. Again, this is Matthew chapter 26, verse 30 to 46. And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "You will all fall away because of me this night, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee." Peter answered him, "Though they all fall away because of you, I will never fall away." Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this very night, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even if I must die with you, I will not deny you." And all the disciples said the same. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." And taking with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch with me." And going a little further, he fell on his face and prayed, saying, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will." And he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So, could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may enter into temptation. Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again, for the second time, he went away and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." And again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the third time, saying the same words again. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Sleep and take your rest later on. See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." In Matthew chapter 26, we come to the story of Jesus' arrest, trial, and crucifixion. It is also the story of the failure of his disciples to be faithful to him during the time of his greatest difficulty. When the religious and civic leaders came to arrest Jesus, all the disciples eventually abandoned him, despite the disciples' claim that they were willing to die for Jesus. They all failed miserably. They didn't even have enough compassion to stay awake with him during the stressful night of his arrest. Jesus knew that his disciples would be faithless, but he hinted at the hope of forgiveness and restoration when he said he would not go before them to Galilee. But he hinted at the hope of forgiveness and restoration when he said that he would go before them to Galilee. Though they abandoned him to his death, it was death that paid for their sin, including the sin of their unfaithfulness to him. Amen. I know I've been unfaithful to Jesus, and I'm being honest and real with you. I've been very unfaithful to Jesus, to where I've lied, I've backbited, I've gossiped, I've talked behind people's back, I've stolen things. I remember stealing money from my adopted mother's purse every morning, because if I stole the money and saved up enough, I could buy drugs or buy alcohol. There was a gas station across the street from my high school who the guy never, and the gal who worked there, they never checked my ID. They never even asked for it. And I would buy alcohol from them. And there was a couple people that I knew who worked at a Dairy Queen who were drug dealers, so I'd get drugs from them. And I was very unfaithful to Jesus during that time, to where I was drinking, I was doing drugs, I was sleeping around, I was sleeping with men and women from high school, football players, basketball players, volleyball players, the theater kids, ROTC or whatever, it's the high school military academy people who, ROTC I think it's called, and there's a couple of them dudes that I slept with, but I was unfaithful in high school to Jesus. And I was unfaithful in college, to where the same behavior occurred: drinking, drugs, cocaine, self-harm, trying to off myself and unalive myself, being in psychiatric units, being locked up, being in AA, detox, after just being in detox 3-4 times because I kept relapsing. I was so unfaithful. I was sleeping around in college, selling my body, and I was so unfaithful to Jesus, yet he still died for me and was crucified and resurrected, and he did everything he did on Calvary for me, knowing that I didn't deserve it and I was unfaithful to him. It's amazing that Jesus Christ did what he did, knowing people like me and people like you, we're unfaithful to him. We're not perfect. We're imperfect, flawed sinners. And even the best Christians are unfaithful to him sometimes. Your pastors and preachers that you look up to are unfaithful to him sometimes because they're not perfect. Your people that you follow on TikTok, the brothers and sisters, the TikTok influencers that have, thousands of followers, they're unfaithful to Jesus sometimes. They're imperfect. And so for me, that's one of the reasons why I have trouble going to church, because of my unfaithfulness. I don't deserve his love. I don't deserve him caring about me. I don't deserve to go to church because of my unfaithfulness. That's one of the reasons why it's so hard. I'm a schizophrenic addict. I hear voices. I see things. I'm paranoid. I'm delusional. It's hard for me to show my feelings. It's hard for me to show my emotions. It's hard for me to love others, to care about others. Why would I deserve to go to church, deserve to take the sacrament? Why would I deserve, or how on God's green earth do I deserve to take the water, the wine, the bread? I don't deserve it, not one bit, which is one of the reasons why it's so hard for me to go. Next, 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 1 to 18. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 1 to 18. Am I not free? Am I not an apostle? Have I not seen Jesus our Lord? Are not you my workmanship in the Lord? If to others I am not an apostle, at least I am to you, for you are the seal of my apostleship in the Lord. This is my defense to those who would examine me. Do we not have the right to eat and drink? Do we not have the right to take along a believing wife, as do the other apostles and the brothers of the Lord and Cephas? Or is it only Barnabas and I who have no right to refrain from working for a living, who serves as a soldier at his own expense, who plants a vineyard without eating any of its fruits, or who tends a flock without getting some of the milk? Do I say these things on human authority? Do not the law say the same? For it is written in the law of Moses, you shall not muzzle an ox when it treads out the grain. Is it for oxen that God is concerned? Does he not certainly speak for our sake? It was written for our sake, because the plowman should plow in hope and the thresher because the plowman should plow in hope and the thresher thresh in hope of sharing in the crop. If we have sown spiritual things among you, is it too much if we reap material things from you? If others share this rightful claim on you, do not we even more? Nevertheless, we have not made use of this right, but we endure anything rather than put an obstacle in the way of the gospel of Christ. Do you not know that those who are employed in the temple's service get their food from the temple, and those who serve at the altar share in the sacrificial offerings? In the same way, the Lord commanded that those who proclaim the gospel should get their living by the gospel. But I have made no use of any of these rights, nor am I writing these things to secure any such provision. For I would rather die than have anything deprive me of my ground for boasting. For if I preach the gospel, that gives me no ground for boasting, for necessity is laid upon me. Woe to me if I do not preach the gospel. For if I do this of my own will, I have a reward. But if not of my own will, am I still entrusted with a stewardship? What then is my reward? That in my preaching I may present the gospel free of charge, so as not to make full use of my rights in the gospel. Reflection. 1 Corinthians chapter 9 illustrates what it means to give up our rights for the good of others. As an apostle, Paul has the right to financial support, but love for Christ drove him to give up this right so that others would understand that God's saving mercies are a free gift, not something that can be purchased. The source of Paul's selfless action is the transforming power of the love of Christ, who gave up so much to become a servant for our sake. When we are gripped by such love, we experience a passion to make him known to others. In the light of this passion, our focus on personal comfort and freedom begin to fade into the shadow of a greater purpose. We now live to advance the gospel and the blessings it brings. Amen. I know my unfaithfulness to Jesus Christ is something I feel ashamed and guilty for. And it is because of that shame and guilt that now I preach the gospel and try to spread the name of Jesus Christ to everyone who I can, whether it's in person or whether it's through TikTok and other social media. It's that guilt and shame that I have for me running from Christ, slapping him in the face, yelling, cursing, spitting in his face, just being so rebellious and disobedient. I preach about Jesus Christ because I know what he did for me, and what he continues to do for me is I don't deserve his love. I don't deserve him comforting me every day, yet he still does. And I want to show people that he can do the same for them. And I know I can't make up for my disobedience. I know I can't make up for my unfaithfulness, but at least I can guide one person to Jesus Christ. And on the day of judgment, if on the day of judgment I find myself being judged by Jesus Christ and he tells me you deserve eternal damnation, at least I can try to hope that I helped guide one person to Jesus, if that makes sense. Because I know my unfaithfulness. I know I'm a wicked, evil person. And if I receive eternal damnation, I deserve it. I hold myself accountable and responsible for my actions. And so if that's what Jesus Christ commands that I receive, then I receive it and I deserve it. But I just hope if that happens that I can guide one person to him, which is why I preach the gospel now. It just amazes me that Christ on a daily basis still tries to comfort me, even though everything I've done, even though it's hard for me to attend church, Jesus Christ still tells me, you're my child, you're my beloved, you're one of my sheep, I'm here for you, I'm guiding you, I'm your good shepherd. Next, Psalm 108. Psalm 108, verse 3 to 4. Psalm 108, 3 to 4. I will give thanks to you, O Lord, among the peoples. I will sing praises to you among the nations. For your steadfast love is great above the heavens. Your faithfulness reaches to the clouds. It's so true. For your steadfast love is great. Your faithfulness reaches the clouds. Despite me having so much trouble going to church, his love still extends towards me. His faithfulness still reaches me. Despite my rebellious attitude towards him, he's still faithful to me. He still keeps all of his promises. It's something that, for me, I feel so guilty about, that I've broken so many promises to Jesus, yet he's never broken any to me. He keeps every single one. It amazes me. It does. So, thoughts for prayer, we're going to end with this. Like the disciples, we cannot put our hope in our faithfulness to Christ. Our security comes from the faithfulness of God to us despite our fickleness. Prayerfully consider whether you are basing your confidence on your abilities to serve God or on Christ's ability to help you. It's not because of us. It's not because we're so good at something or we're skilled or we got qualities that are impressive. No, everything is because of Christ's ability to love us and help us on everything we do. We owe Christ everything. We owe Christ our life. He gave up his own to be crucified, died and resurrected. He gave up his mortal life for us. So he deserves everything. Brothers and sisters, I pray and I hope that today's discussion and devotional was worthwhile for you to hear. I truly do. And I hope my honesty and transparency is something that people appreciate. So I'm going to go. I pray for each and every one of you on the other side of this screen. I really do. I love you guys so much, and you don't understand how much this means to me, my TikTok account, of me sharing my life with you guys and my story. I truly, truly care about you and love you guys so much. And I don't care what country you're from, what religion you practice, if you're Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Buddhist, agnostic, atheist, I don't care. I love you, and I want to see you succeed. I want to see you figure out your purpose and your mission and accomplish it. I don't care if you're a man, woman, transgender. I don't care if you identify as they, them, Zer or Z. I just love you, and I want to be there for you, and I want to be that friend that you can talk to about anything. I want to be that brother for you that you can trust and count on. So, brothers and sisters, thank you so much for listening. Again, I'm praying for each and every one of you, and I love you guys from the bottom of my heart. So, thank you guys for listening. God bless, and until next time, I hope and I'll pray that you tune in. Thanks, guys. Peace out.